Hey, it's Arjun, CEO of Doola, and in today's video, I'm going to walk through the pros and cons of forming a Wyoming LLC. Let's dive in. A limited liability company, or LLC, is the best way to register a company in the US. Typically, an LLC is like the middle child between a sole proprietorship and a corporation. It is neither one nor the other, but it has some of the best elements of both, such as tax benefits. And we're going to dive into the details here. The problem is that states have different rules for LLCs, and some are more business friendly than others. Wyoming is particularly supportive of LLCs, even for non-US residents. However, it's not all roses. There are still Wyoming LLCs, pros and cons that you should consider when registering your business there. Suppose you are a non-US resident considering establishing a business in the US, or a Wyoming resident wanting to start out with entrepreneurship. In that case, an excellent option is to form an LLC in Wyoming. However, before you do, you should absolutely find out about the pros and cons of an LLC in Wyoming so you can make a fully informed decision. I'm going to summarize the major pros of forming an LLC in Wyoming. Most businesses are sole proprietorships because they do not need registration within the state. However, the assets of the small business owner are indistinguishable from that of the business in a sole proprietorship. Now, why is that important? That is important because if you have a sole proprietorship, there is no separation between personal and business, which means your personal assets are at risk in the case of a lawsuit. You carry personal liability, which can be problematic if the business runs into debt or the business becomes subject of a lawsuit. An LLC is a legal business structure designed to protect personal assets, such as the real estate of the business owner, from the liabilities and debts of the business or the company. Now, while the LLC structure may resemble a corporation more than a sole proprietorship, LLC members are still sole proprietors or partners from a tax perspective. An LLC has what's called pass-through taxation, which means members pay income tax individually on their earnings from the business. The LLC itself is not subject to state income or business tax. The great thing about Wyoming is the tax benefits. Wyoming does not impose income taxes. Wyoming LLC members effectively do not pay any state income taxes at all, which means thousands of dollars of savings. Wyoming does have a 4% sales tax, and counties can impose a 1% general tax, but that is for everyone, in business or not. However, these state tax rules do not exempt LLC members from federal income taxes. As the first state to adopt LLC statutes in 1977, Wyoming boasts the most extended LLC case law history in the US. Because the state continually improves its rules and regulations for LLCs, it's also one of the strongest. The initial and annual fees the state government charges for LLCs are also comparatively low. It's also worth noting that Wyoming LLCs filed online are accepted immediately, as long as they meet all requirements. That's an important point to stress because other states will not accept the application immediately. So if speed of forming your LLC is important, Wyoming is a fantastic choice. Privacy. Wyoming has strict privacy laws to protect the identities of LLC owners and managers. The Secretary of State does not require the names of LLC members and managers to appear in the articles of organization to start an LLC. In addition, since an LLC in Wyoming does not pay income or business taxes, the state does not get access to the personal information of its members through any tax filings. Members already get protection from company liabilities through the LLC, but that does not stop creditors or plaintiffs from contacting them anyway. By not requiring LLCs to provide personally identifying information, or PII, Wyoming keeps LLC members safe from harassment. It may occur to some people that companies desiring such privacy might be attempting to run their business unlawfully, but that is far from the truth. People have a fundamental right to their privacy in all matters, including their financial affairs. Additionally, business matters have nothing to do with the personal lives of company owners. So, publishing personally identifying information, or PII, serves no purpose. The next benefit is legal protection. To protect LLC members, Wyoming state law legally allows a registered agent to act as a manager on their behalf. The articles of organization list the registered agent as the LLC manager instead of the names of the LLC members. However, the actual control over the LLC remains with the members. That is, unless deemed deemed otherwise by the consensus of the members. The nominee director or manager accommodation protects members from unsolicited emails or mail, summons, or harassment. Anyone pursuing a lawsuit against the company cannot name LLC members as defendants. Additionally, Wyoming law has a charging order protection for LLCs. A charging order protection means the creditor cannot force the member to sell LLC assets or ownership in the company to pay off the debt. Only 4 other states in the US extend this legal protection, namely Alaska, South Dakota, Nevada, and Delaware. The next major benefit of forming an LLC in Wyoming is anonymous LLCs. A Wyoming LLC is anonymous because Wyoming privacy laws do not require member names to be put on the public record, and they allow a registered agent to represent the company. To add another layer of anonymity, you can even set up a mail forwarding address for the company so that no mail goes directly to you. No one, not even the state government and tax office, knows the real owners of the LLC. The argument is there is no benefit to publicizing personal information when the LLC operates as a separate entity from its members. The next benefit is few regulations and formalities. Wyoming LLCs enjoy a lot more flexibility regarding regulations versus corporations. They do not have to comply with the same rules under corporate law, which need to be run by directors to make major decisions and officers to run the business daily. Wyoming also does not impose a minimum capital contribution for LLCs. LLCs have no shareholders or board members, so they have less accountability and no need to hold a shareholder meeting. The manager does not have to be an LLC member and may have complete authority to act for the company. In addition, LLC members do not have to be residents of Wyoming or even US citizens. Owners can handle everything required to form an LLC in Wyoming online, and an operating agreement is not required. However, that is not to say Wyoming LLCs are not subject to any regulations. All Wyoming LLCs have to submit an annual report to the Secretary of State on the first day of the LLC's anniversary month in order to stay in good standing and prevent the risk of administrative dissolution, which is when the state automatically dissolves your company for not being in good standing. The annual report carries a license tax of $60, or 0.2 of 1 million on the dollar of the company's assets in Wyoming, whichever one is higher. 1 mil is 1,000th of a dollar per $1 of assessed property value. Failure to submit the report and pay the tax within 60 days can lead to the dissolution of the LLC. So it's critical that even if you form your LLC in Wyoming, you have a solution to file your annual report. The LLC may also need local and state licenses, depending on the nature and location of the business. For instance, a general contractor in Afton will have to apply for a municipal license and pay a franchise tax to operate in that city. An appliance retailer with a physical store in Wyoming will also be subject to sales tax. The next benefit of forming an LLC in Wyoming: minimal fees. Business owners can form an LLC in Wyoming and pay relatively low fees. They will need to pay a $100 fee, add a $2 convenience fee if filing online, to file an LLC with the Wyoming Secretary of State, which is very low compared to Maryland, for example, which charges $450, or Tennessee, for example, which can be $300 to $3,000 depending on the number of members. To maintain an LLC, the company has to pay an annual report license tax of $60. That's it. In Tennessee, maintaining an LLC can set a company back between $300 and $3,000 every single year. Compare that to Wyoming with a $100 filing fee and a $60 annual report license fee. That is hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in savings. Let's dive into some of the cons of forming an LLC in Wyoming. The first is incomplete anonymity. Indeed, Wyoming does not compel LLC members to disclose their identity in the Articles of Organization, which is in the public record. However, the anonymity afforded by the privacy laws has a small kink. Wyoming requires LLC members to provide the registered agent with their name, contact information, and address, no PO box, and those of the managers. The Secretary of State can obtain that information from the registered agent based on recent updates within Wyoming statutes. The next con is asset protection. Wyoming's charging order protection laws are effective for members to protect their LLC assets and ownership from creditors. However, the protection does not extend outside of Wyoming. Members living out of state will have to deal with different laws protecting their LLC assets from garnishment by creditors. For example, a member that lives in California, where there is no charging order protection law, is vulnerable to creditors seizing their assets or ownership in the Wyoming LLC. However, the protection may stay intact if that member lives in Alaska or outside the US. The next con is lack of corporate taxes. The thing you need to understand about taxes in an LLC is that the IRS does not have a category for LLCs per se. The IRS will tax an LLC as an S corporation, partnership, or C corporation. Which one will apply depends on the type of LLC. The IRS typically taxes one-member LLCs as an S corporation, meaning the owner pays individual taxes. LLCs with 2 or more members also pay taxes on any income they make as individuals, but the IRS recognizes it as a partnership. This is the pass-through taxation for which LLCs are famous. And Wyoming is even more famous as it does not levy personal income taxes. An LLC may elect to be taxed as a corporation or a C corp to avail tax deductions and make it easier to bring in investors in the future. However, double taxation is always an issue with a C corp, where you pay the corporate tax and then you pay the individual tax. Most LLCs do not take that route, especially Wyoming LLCs, for purposes of tax deductions. Unless an LLC registers as a C corp for tax purposes, it will not have to pay corporate income taxes anyway. The fact that Wyoming has no corporate tax is a moot point for LLCs, and nothing that should cause excitement. The next con of forming an LLC in Wyoming is low population. The idea of forming a Wyoming LLC seems great until the fact dawns that the state has the lowest population in the US at just 580,000. From a strictly statistical point of view, it narrows the local market size of any business. Now, of course, in the age of e-commerce and online delivery and online businesses, there is no reason for a Wyoming LLC to limit its market to the residents of Wyoming. A Wyoming LLC can legally have customers and clients outside of Wyoming without incurring fines, penalties, or additional taxes, as long as the LLC is engaged in interstate business. Engaging in interstate business means all your operations are conducted entirely within the borders of the state of Wyoming. The LLC merely ships the products to people or companies in another state. Let's run through an example. If you manufacture goods in your plant in Wyoming and send it to customers in California, California cannot regulate your business or impose taxes on you. Last but not least, a con of forming an LLC in Wyoming is the expense. The final con for these Wyoming LLCs pertains to members who form an LLC in Wyoming but live in another state. In that case, the costs become a little problematic. But again, this actually applies in any state. If you form an LLC in the state you live outside of, but reside in a different state. An LLC owned by a non-resident must also register the Wyoming LLC in their home state as a foreign LLC. As a result, the non-resident has to pay filing and annual fees in both Wyoming and the home state. For example, let's say Jane lives in Tennessee and formed the LLC in Wyoming. She pays the filing fee of $100 accordingly in Wyoming to form her LLC. However, since she is doing business in Wyoming but lives in Tennessee, she is illegally doing business in Tennessee. So, she files her Wyoming LLC with the Tennessee Secretary of State as a foreign LLC, paying the $300 fee in Tennessee. Technically, there is still an LLC in Wyoming. However, Jane must file for and pay reporting fees in both states, Wyoming and Tennessee. She may also have to pay for a registered agent in both states. Tennessee also imposes a franchise and excise tax on most LLCs, which Jane must also pay. Jane could have avoided all of these expenses if she had originally chosen to file her LLC in Tennessee. All these caveats only apply to non-Wyoming residents, meaning if you don't live in Wyoming. If you are a resident of Wyoming or you do not live in the US, you will probably not run into any of the issues Jane ran into in this example. Last but not least, I'm going to run through some of the major FAQs or frequently asked questions we get when it comes to the pros and cons of forming an LLC in Wyoming. Why is Wyoming one of the best states for LLC formation? Wyoming has many advantages over other states. for building an LLC. It has no state income tax, filing and reporting costs are low, members' privacy is assured, and it has charging order protection laws. How do I make my LLC anonymous in Wyoming? You can make your LLC anonymous in Wyoming by omitting the names of members from the articles of organization. Wyoming will accept the pertinent information of the registered agent as a nominee director or manager for the LLC. Does Wyoming have an LLC filing requirement? Yes. Wyoming LLCs have to submit an annual report to the Secretary of State on the first day of the LLC's anniversary month. The annual report carries a license tax of $60, or 2/10 of 1 mil on the dollar of the company's assets in Wyoming, whichever one is higher. 1 mil is 1,000th of a dollar per $1 of assessed property value. Failure to submit the report and pay the tax within 60 days can lead to the revocation of the LLC and permanent dissolution for failing to submit an annual report for 2 years. That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed this video, and now you feel like you truly understand the pros and cons of forming an LLC in Wyoming. And if you have any more questions about Wyoming or LLCs or forming an LLC in any state in the US, do not hesitate to reach out to the team at Doola and let us know if you have any additional questions. See you in the next video.